School since 2009, where I am currently the director of our Fundamentals of Lawyering program. That's our first year sort of legal research and writing program, but we do much more than legal research and writing. We also do like lawyering skills and helping students develop their professional identities. I also work closely with Kathy Hessler and Joan Schaffner, who are here today. Hi, and thanks for coming, Kathy and Joan. Kathy is our Dean of Animal Law and the director of our Animal Legal Education Initiative, and Joan and I are the co-faculty directors of that program. I also teach an upper level seminar that I designed called Gender, Race, and Species, which is a really fun seminar that I've been enjoying, sort of exposing students to animal related issues. I also spent a year back in 2017-18 on a research leave at Lund University in Sweden, where I taught a course in critical animal studies to about 50 master's students from all over the world. One thing I just love to know from all of you is, are any of you law students? When Yolanda and I chatted, I think I was thinking that most of the folks in this Zoom room would be law students, so my remarks might be more value add to a student group, but I'm delighted to have all of you here and excited to hear about what you hope that we'll be talking about today. So maybe I'll pass this to Julie, because Julie, you're next on my Zoom screen here.
Okay, thank you. I'm Julie Palais, and I'm based in Virginia. And I recently completed at the end of December the new MSL program at Lewis and Clark, which is basically an LLM curriculum for non-lawyers. And I've been working in Nepal for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm sort of doing my own thing and developing an initiative to bring the field of animal law to Nepal law schools. And last January and February, I was in Nepal, or this past January and February, I was in Nepal and brought a colleague from India over, and she gave talks, and we met with faculty and administration at a couple of law schools, and it seems like things are moving along. So I'm interested in working on that, but also possibly getting involved in other broader issues.
Wow, that's amazing, Julie. I was in Nepal many years ago and did a hike in Annapurna, and on both sides we flew into Lukla, and it's just such an amazing country. I mean, it really is. I would love to go back. So,
Well,
Deborah, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. I'm an attorney in New York, and I am a conflict consultant everywhere else in the universe. I do not litigate any longer. About, 14 years ago now, I started a practice that creates the platform for mediation of conflicts between people over animals. And so I travel all over the world to give talks and to help people resolve conflicts. The art of listening has been lost in many conflicts. So I help people create and augment their listening skills. I'm putting together 2 or 3 programs that I've been asked to do at different universities that have really strong ADR programs, alternative dispute resolution. Because if we can bring people around to having a conversation and listening, we can eliminate a lot of litigation and actually help animals move forward. So my practice goes the gamut from divorcing with pets, which 7 states have now been brilliant, and I'm saying that facetiously, and giving it to the judges to decide, when the people really probably know best if you give them the opportunity to decide. I'm also helping with the pangolins. If you were on the ABA international group, we had Chris Renshaw come in and talk about the plight of the pangolins. So I'm doing that. I'm also on UIA with Yolanda. And we are really striving to help lawyers use more of their negotiating skills to help animals achieve better outcomes more quickly. So that's what I do. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about this. Thanks so much for passing this through my email so I could sign up.
Okay, let's move to Elena.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm in the move because I thought it's going to be like a regular webinar where you're not supposed to participate. And I'm just running for an appointment, so I'm walking and was hoping to listen. But I'm a corporate lawyer by background, and I'm a Russia-trained lawyer, and also New York admitted attorney. And I had a career break and went back and forth between different corporate roles, but also environmental work has been always on my mind. And over the years, I did a lot of pro bono work on different issues. I'm on the environmental law committee of the New York City Bar Association. I worked a little bit with the International Fund for Animal Welfare. And basically having a career break, I'm trying to, I don't like this word, but reinvent myself. And I love animals, always loved. And, just recently came across the book, The Animal Liberation Now, which I did not, honestly, it existed. I also was really taken by the book by Jonathan Franz in The End of the Earth. Just the, the poetry of his essays. And somehow, it started coming to me that maybe this is the area where I should be looking for. I'm trying to join the animal law committee at the New York City Bar Association, and I started looking at people on LinkedIn. That's how basically I came across your workshop and thought, maybe it will give me some ideas basically how I can bring together my experience in all kinds of areas and maybe be able to transition basically into animal law advocacy, I guess. Thank you.
Feel free to turn your camera off and your mic if you're busy and doing something else, but thank you for joining us. We are going to be having a conference July 19th and 20th in New York City at Seward and Kissel. The UIA is having an international animal law conference. I'm sure you'll hear about it through LinkedIn. We expect to open up registration this week, but you definitely need to put that on your calendar. It will be a gathering of US lawyers as well as lawyers throughout the world. We already have lawyers registered from Congo, from Algeria, from France, from the United States, from Cameroon. So, and we haven't even opened registration to the public yet. So it's going to be a fabulous gathering. It'll be a great opportunity for you to network and meet other lawyers who are working in animal law as well as in other fields.
Thank you. And sorry, which page is the best to find this registration?
I would say, are you connected with me on LinkedIn?
If I'm not, I will. Maybe I follow, but I'll double check.
Connect with me on LinkedIn, because once the registration opens, we'll be doing a lot of LinkedIn promotion. So that's probably your best way to find out as soon as we open registration.
Great, thank you. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Okay, Cassidy, let's move to you.
Hi, so I am based down in Miami right now. I'm currently a first-year grad student at the Vermont Law and Graduate School. So I actually found about the webinar through the Animal Law Society. She sent an email to everyone that's a member. It's like, I thought it would be interesting. I took some time between undergrad and grad school, and I actually worked at the animal shelter in DC for a few years, which I loved, and that kind of pushed me towards an animal welfare career, because that is not what I did in undergrad. And so now I'm kind of in a blank slate as to where I would like to have a career. I'm kind of open to anywhere and anything across the globe, honestly. So any kind of insight is something that I'm looking forward to over the next couple of years while I'm in school learning. So I'm pretty excited.
How was your first year of law school?
It's good. It's good. I do it remotely. So I'm right now just in the grad program. I haven't decided if I'm going to do a dual program quite yet, but they told me I have some time to figure it out.
Okay.
Cassidy, is the grad program like a master's program, and is it in like animal studies, or what's the topic?
So sorry, I didn't say that. Doing my master's, it was originally the program was Masters of Animal Protection Policy, and now they've made it to where it's just an MPP, and my concentration will be Animal Protection Policy.
Okay. Okay, let's move to Charlotte.
Hi there, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I am also on the move, so I'm going to stay off my camera just now. I am a litigation lawyer based in Scotland in the UK, and I graduated from the Lewis and Clark LLM in animal law online about a year ago now. Still looking to explore options in animal law in terms of a career, as in the UK we're not fortunate to have organisations like ALDF and Humane Society where there's actually in-house lawyers able to work on animal issues, so we're still fairly underdeveloped in that sense. But yeah, I'm just here to get some inspiration and just chat to you guys in the field and yeah, spark some ideas hopefully. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Okay, Kathy, introduce yourself, although we know you, but let's have a formal introduction. Oops, we can't hear you.
All right, is that how it's working?
Now,
Okay.
now we can hear you.
Sorry, switching too many forums today. So thank you. Eastland already said a little bit about me. So I'm the Dean of the Animal Law Program at Lewis and Clark and Director of the Animal Legal Education Initiative. So I came to GW to help build on what was already going on there for animal law. I helped create the Animal Law Program at Lewis and Clark and the Animal Law Clinic there and the Aquatic Animal Law Initiative. And so I've done animal law litigation, legislation, policy work, administrative, regulatory work, as Deborah knows, mediation and ADR negotiation. So sort of the gamut of the kinds of ways the lawyers can engage, including activism. So I've been a law professor for 32 or 3 years, focusing on animal law primarily for the last 17 years, I think it is. So yeah, and so I'm here to support. I'm really happy folks are here, and just going to shout out that the previous webinars are online on our website if folks want to know about the previous conversations about careers. So this is an ongoing sort of series to try and help people. And we want GW to be a place where people can get some support for developing their animal law careers. So holler if I can be helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, let's move to Vivian.
Oh, hi, my name is Vivian. I'm currently driving, so I'm sorry for the noise, but I pulled over for a I studied law on the Open University in the UK, and I'm planning to pursue my career in animal law. I did my dissertation in animal welfare at the end of the university, and I currently work as an ombudsman. So I'm just here to get to know more in this area. And I'm planning to start studying, well, to apply at the Lewis and Clark University as well to study animal law.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, let's move to Joan Schaffner.
Hello, everybody. Really good to see everyone, and also Eastland. Thank you for the short introduction. I've been at GW Law for 32 years now, and started. I guess I got introduced to animal law back in about 2003, 2004. And it's just really wonderful now that we brought Kathy Hessler in, and we have our Animal Legal Education Initiative that's really gung-ho and putting on so many wonderful projects. For myself, I actually officially don't do a lot of animal law through GW, although that will change hopefully next spring when Kathy and I are going to start co-teaching our mini clinic. I teach basic 1L courses at GW, civil procedure, legislation and regulation, and speaking Cassidy at that. I just had my last day of class for the semester. It's amazing how quickly we end. but I'm very involved, yeah, with the American Bar Association's animal law committees in the both TIPS and international sections. And I am a member of the UIA group as well. So it's really great to see everyone here. Like I said, I guess the work that I've done that I'm most sort of happy about is, number one, our Animal Welfare Project, which is a pro bono effort at GW, has been around for quite some time. And we've done some really great work getting some bills through DC Council to promote animal interests here in the district. And then at the ABA, the resolutions that we've promoted, about 15 now animal law related resolutions that have gone through the House of Delegates, either through the TIPS or the international law sections. Work has really, I think, helped promote animal interests worldwide. So, but I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joan. Okay, let's move to Kate. Okay, so Kate can't use her audio right now, but she's a 1L at American University and Washington College of Law. She has a degree in environmental biology and has volunteered with different shelters, and she's interested in pursuing a career in animal law. Okay, welcome, Kate. Okay, let's move to, is it Disti? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Hi, yes, it is Disti. So I'm currently in Mumbai, India, and I'm in my first year at law school. I was previously studying at the University of Toronto and seeing animal justice there and the work they do as a national animal organization. I wanted to bring that to India as well, because I know we have good laws for animals. It's just the enforcement isn't great. So I'm hoping to have a career in animal law and even environmental law.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, we have quite a mix of people on the call today. That's exciting. Given that we have several people who are interested in reinventing themselves and pursuing a career in animal law, maybe what we can do is talk a little bit about our own careers, those of us who have gotten into animal law. I would like to offer encouragement to everybody. Personally, I had a career in corporate communications for many years and decided, I don't know, I guess I was in my late 30s that I decided that I wanted to do some meaningful work. And my initial thought was to do environmental law work. At the time, animal law was still very nascent. I mean, there were no programs available, and it wasn't something that was certainly taught in law schools. So I went to law school later in life, really loved law school. And living in Dallas, Texas, I quickly learned that practicing environmental law meant oil and gas. So I decided that was not the direction that I wanted to go in terms of the environment. And a friend suggested, animal law. And I started thinking about it. When I graduated for 3 years, I did human rights work. I did work for an organization that provided pro bono representation to people who were victims of human trafficking, people seeking asylum because of political persecution. So I did that for 3 years and then decided that I wanted to get into animal law. I actually formed my own solo practice, and I hope that no one is intimidated by that. I think there is certainly plenty of room to have a solo practice in animal law. I think part of it depends on where you're located. Larger cities are going to be more lucrative. You're going to have more opportunity, and certainly the coast are a little more progressive in that sense than the middle of the country, but it's certainly doable. The ABA, one of our former presidents, has practice in the Midwest. I think she's in Kansas or Missouri. So it's certainly possible. And she is certainly making a good living and has basically added attorneys to her practice. So if that's something that interests you, it's certainly something that's doable. I also want to encourage anybody who's interested to join the American Bar Association, the Tort Trial and Insurance Practice Section. Animal Law Committee has been around since 2004, I think. And the International Animal Law Committee has been around for several years. Those are great ways to meet people. If you're interested in international law, the UIA, the union, and I'll put the website in the chat box. The UIA is a great resource for international law. We're having our first conference in New York City on international animal law, July 19th and 20th. And if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, you should connect with me, and I will definitely have all of the information related to registration. We'll start promoting the speakers. It is going to be international in scope. Every speaker, every session we have, one of the speakers is international from a country other than the United States. So we have speakers from India, we have speakers from the UK, we have speakers from Kenya. So it's definitely going to have an international theme to it, as well as the attendees. So it's going to be different from other conferences that you've been to. So be sure and put that on your calendar. After I did my solo practice, I decided that I wanted to teach. And so I started teaching. I think I was still searching for my niche in animal law. I found that litigation wasn't exactly my thing. I was a little intimidated by or put off by the adversarial approach to solving problems. Maybe I should have gotten into mediation the way Deborah did. So, decided to start writing books. And so, you know, my career path has been anything but linear. And I think that you'll find that that's the case with a lot of us who have come up over the past, 10 or 20 years in animal law. Deborah, I was going to ask you, did you start out doing animal law? Why don't you share a little bit about your career path?
My career path was that I was an assistant district attorney. No, I didn't start off in animal law at all. But having said that, I was intimately involved in showing my dogs. So I was very interested in animals and animal laws and how they affected animals. And I was in the thick of it for the first, I'd say, 10 years of my practice. Then I took a little time off. And when I came back, I had been ruined by being a PTA mom because I had to get along with people I didn't like very much and who had very different ideas than mine. And that's when I reached the need to become a mediator and bring people together who think differently and listen for common ground so that we can move things along incrementally. Because yes, we can litigate and yes, we can legislate, but having those cases come out the way we hope and having the legislation implemented the way we want it sometimes takes the ability to have a very collaborative, empathetic conversation, especially where animals are concerned. So that's how I got here. I was a huge litigator, loved litigating in New York City, and then stayed home with my kids for a few years. And when I got back, I'd been ruined by having to deal with all those parents with their kids. I say that with love. And so I pivoted. So the few people who are on here are thinking about pivoting, maybe not reinventing yourself, but pivoting. It just came to me one day when I walked out of court and my client had spent $7,000 to keep their rescue dog, that I said there has to be a better way of having this conversation, because we know what's best for the animals. We just have to sit down and have a conversation. So that's what I started out doing. I wrote a book on it. And I've spoken, all over the world on this. I help veterinarians have better conversations with their clients. Clients have better conversations with their veterinarians, their breeders. Everybody have a better conversation. And I think that that's always what we're striving for in animal law, is that we create the atmosphere where we do a lot more listening. It's a choice we make, whether to listen for response or listen for information, to try to find where we can collaborate, where we can meet, so that we can make incremental moves for the animals. And so that's my mission. Hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah. So Julie, why don't you talk to us about your career path? It sounds quite interesting.
Actually, let me just interject because I was going to do this anyway. I just happened by chance to have both of your books on my within, just on my table. So let me do a little promotion for. So this is Yolanda's book and this is Deborah's book, and they just by chance happen to be right on my desk here. So for people who are not familiar with them. I'll just say I started as a scientist and I worked for over 26 years for the federal government at the National Science Foundation. I'm a geologist, so not coming at it from the biological side of things, but I always was very passionate about animals. And while I was working, I did a lot with animal rescue and volunteering with a golden retriever, doing fostering and many other different things. And when I retired at the end of 2016, I had already started the online program in international animal welfare, ethics and law from the University of Edinburgh, and I did their postgraduate certificate, which I finished in 2017, and then went right into the anthrozoology master's program at Canisius, which was a hybrid program, mostly online, but you spent 4 days at the beginning of each semester in Buffalo, meeting the faculty and the other students. And then more recently in 2022, I began the program, the new MSL program at Lewis and Clark, which I just finished at the end of December, and that was basically an LLM curriculum for non-lawyers. And while during that program, I became involved in activities trying to help street dogs in Nepal. And as part of the MSL program, one of the great things that I thought was a great teaching tool was a requirement in one of the courses to do a website. And so I had always wanted to learn how to do a website, and I did 2 different websites during the 2 different semesters that I took this particular course. It was a course in sort of hot topics. I think they called it hot topics in animal law. And so I did one website on street dogs and then another website about broader issues in animal law in Nepal. And I realized that they had no animal law course or program in Nepal. And so that's sort of what I'm working on now. And I'm collaborating with a lawyer in India who was also a student in the program while I was doing the program. And when I was in Nepal this last January, she came over. I invited her to come over for 5 days, and she stayed in the same apartment complex that I did. And we went around and met people at the different law schools to talk to them about bringing animal law into their curriculum. And just by chance, it was very timely because they were working on changing and developing their curricula. So it seems like there's some hope for doing this. And so I'm just kind of doing it on my own.
Okay, great. So Iselin, why don't you talk a little bit about your career path into teaching animal law courses? How did you get to this point?
I can talk about that, and I will talk about that. I also wanted to just give and maybe if you'll indulge me, Yolanda, just because it's on top of mind right now, just like a few little like tips or strategies to those of you that are law students in this Zoom room of things to be thinking about. And then I can also talk about how I got into teaching. But if you're in law school, or if you're one of the people that has recently completed, and congratulations if you've completed one of the MSLs, or if you're planning on going into the Lewis and Clark program, it's such a cool program. Just some things to think about. maybe doing when you're in school or when you are done with school. And one of the first is I just want to encourage everyone to look for opportunities to write about animals in some way, shape, or form and find a place to get that writing published. If you're in law school, you might do that through a more traditional way, like writing a scholarly paper and seeing maybe if you're on a journal or for a seminar class and submitting it to a scholarly journal somewhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in the United States, and seeing if it can get published. But you can also look for opportunities, and I think all of us in this Zoom room can do this, where you might find a newsletter or a blog that you might yourself find interesting, and you could write and post for that newsletter or for that blog. And I think one of the biggest, sort of like strategies to my own professional success is that I have, just like Yolanda said, my career has taken lots of twists and turns, but I've pursued opportunities that have seemed kind of random at the time, or I haven't had like a good connection or network, or like nobody could pull a string for me kind of thing. But I've just sort of reached out blindly to the person or to the entity, to the organization, to the newsletter, what have you, that I wanted to make a connection with. And I just introduced myself and I said, would you ever consider accepting considering like a little article written, on this topic or whatever. And so I think if all of you that are in a student capacity could leave school with something on your resume that is related to animals that you've written and published, I think that will help position you later on when you're, talking to employers, because it shows that this is something you're thinking about, you're serious about, and that you have things to say. And one of my biggest regrets about law school is that I was on a journal and I spent a year writing a huge, paper, and I never tried to get it published. And to this day, I just feel like, God, if only I knew there was so many hundreds of journals out there in the world, and probably one of them would have, taken a bite and would have published it. And then that could have been part of my sort of professional portfolio. Whether you're a student or not a student, I think just sort of encouraging you to think about ways that you can get involved in animal-related work that, again, can sort of help you have a conversation with a future employer that shows that you're sort of already interested in and committed to pursuing this career. Those of you that are already practicing lawyers, maybe there's a course you could try to teach as an adjunct professor. There are increasing numbers of law schools around the world that are teaching animal law or related courses. And in my experience at GW Law, where Kathy and Joan and I are, almost all adjunct professors are actually hired either by word of mouth or because the person interested in being an adjunct professor sends a basically cold call email to a professor on the faculty or to one of the deans responsible for adjunct hiring with their resume and says, I would be delighted to be considered to be an adjunct professor in, these subject areas, whether it's animal law, animal rights law, maybe some environmental law course, whatever would fit with your experience. There's almost never going to be like a job posting for those opportunities. You have to go out and sort of ask to be considered. There's an increasing number of classes taught online as well. So like, even if you're in India, you might be able to be an adjunct professor in, another country, depending on if it's an online course or not. If you don't find an adjunct teaching opportunity or you're not interested in that, lots of us that are teaching on faculties love to have guest speakers. And that's another way that you can sort of establish yourself as somebody that has something to say in the field. I know the course that I teach, I love bringing in guest speakers. And so it could be that you just kind of comb through your different networks and you look at LinkedIn and you look at the faculty bios of different, faculty at that teach animal law or other related courses around not only the US, but around the world. And you might send in like a blind email, like a cold email to these professors and say, hi, you don't know me, but I have some expertise having worked on this project, in Nepal that relates to animals. Are you ever, in a position in the future to consider a guest speaker? I'd be delighted to do that. So I think for me, just sort of throwing myself in front of people and saying, I'd love to help. Can I help you? Has actually yielded a lot of great opportunities for me. Reaching out to organizations that I would like to be on the board of and asking if I can be on the board. sometimes they've said yes, and I've gotten to be on boards of directors and they did not even know I existed. But a lot of organizations would love board members that are enthusiastic and want to, sort of put the time and the work in, even if I've never been the kind of board member that is in a position where I can do a lot of fundraising. Most of you probably know that organizations have two kinds of board members, ones that are really good at fundraising and then ones that sort of do the work of the board. And if you're interested in an organization that inspires you, they might not be in a position to be growing their board, but again, that's how I've gotten a lot of the board opportunities that I've gotten. And I think it's helped me build my sort of credibility as somebody that's really working in the animal space. Let me see. I think, yeah, and I'll just say just very, very briefly about how I got involved in teaching. I mean, I got involved in teaching because I reached out to my former supervisor, and I was working at Alley Cat Allies, a nonprofit organization based in the DC area that does advocacy for feral cats. But I knew I was interested in teaching, and I reached out to my predecessor and I said, would you ever consider me as an adjunct professor to teach legal writing? And she said, yes. So like I said, there was no job posting there. And then one thing led to another, and I was eventually able to apply for a full-time, long-term position, and here I am. But the way that I got involved in animal-related teaching was really through happenstance. And if we have time or anyone's interested, I can talk offline about how that happened. But it was through a chance encounter with an academic in Europe that teaches critical animal studies that gave me the opportunity to be a visiting scholar at his program in Sweden. And before I met him and had that conversation, and like I said, that was random. It wasn't even at a conference. I had never even thought about how I could marry my interest in animals. I've been an animal rights activist and a, ethical vegan for a long time. It never occurred to me that that's something I could also do work in professionally. So I think for me, just like being open to serendipitous moments and being willing to get involved, often for no pay, I hate to say it, but doing work as a volunteer and on boards or for very little pay, like as an adjunct professor, those have helped me create opportunities that have then helped sort of grow a bigger and paid sort of career that involves doing animal related work that has been really meaningful to me. I'll pass the baton now, Yolanda. I've got more to say, but I'd love to hear from others.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'll open it up right now. I will add to what Iselin said that in addition to joining and writing, I think it's also important, and maybe Kathy or Iselin or even Joan can kind of speak to what they're seeing right now, is you need to look at the big picture, follow the profession. I mean, there are a lot of things that are going on right now related to the environment, sustainability, climate change, artificial intelligence that are having direct impacts on animal law that I think we should all be paying attention to. There was an article recently in, I think it was The Guardian, I can't remember the newspaper, but there is a group that is now basically communicating with whales through artificial intelligence. And there's conservation efforts related to AI. So I think looking at ways you can connect what you're good at or what you're interested in that may not be directly related to animals, that there are obviously connections that can be made. So I think everyone needs to be aware of things that are going on in the world of science, in the world of politics, and the environment that you can capitalize in your own career. So Kathy, maybe you can speak a little bit. What are some of the hot areas that you're seeing in careers? What are students going into right now?
Yeah, thanks. And I definitely want to echo what you just said. So what I find over the last 17 or so years of teaching animal law students, that what works is when people follow their passion, right? And so even if there's not a clear pathway, even if something doesn't already exist, as Lisa was saying, like you just reach out to people and keep going and try to do, I suggest that people think about it both sort of substantively and procedurally. So some people are really drawn to, say, dog issues or cat issues. So focus on that. but people are also procedurally maybe inclined to do litigation or legislation or mediation, right? And so what is the way in which you want to do your work? And so be thinking about what works for your personality and what you care about. But there are definitely things that we're going to need a lot of help with coming down the pike, right? So AI, artificial intelligence, both the ways in which animal folks can use it, but also the way it sort of through its species lens, right, is damaging and harming animals all across the globe. So that's going to be, we're going to need a lot of hands doing that kind of work. We've got aquatic animals is an area that's still growing and needs a lot more work. They're just animals that aren't sort of seen or protected around the globe, and there's a lot more damage that's coming. So things like deep sea mining, right, and the increase in pollution and noise pollution, all kinds of stuff, right, that you probably already know about. A focus on other kinds of groups of animals, so certainly insects, because folks are trying to suggest that farming insects is a way to help with factory farming of other animals or for human nutrition, those kinds of things. So those are some areas that are going to be growing in addition to the ones that Yolanda already mentioned. So I definitely think thinking about what you're interested in, thinking about where there's need, what are the things lawyers and legal advocates are going to need to be doing. It's different in different countries and different regions, right, based on what the jurisprudence is in those settings. So there's the nice thing, right, is that there's no limitation to what you can do. That's the nice thing. The challenge is it takes a little bit more initiative for animal law students sometimes, right, to figure out whether they want to set up their own firm or, whatever they're going to do, because the path isn't sort of circumscribed. That's good. It means you've got a lot of opportunity, but it means you have to do a little bit more work to lay the path for yourself. And I'll also say none of us are where we started. And that's not unusual just for animal law people. It's just the norm for professionals these days, right? But specifically in the law. So don't think that's a weird or odd thing. It's actually a very freeing thing. So you're not stuck with the first thing that you do. If you decide you don't like it, you can do something else, right? Again, you have autonomy and agency, and so trying to figure out what works for you, sort of being in integrity with your own values and your own passions is the way to go. But if you want to know sort of what the trends are, in addition to just looking at the news, you can always just look at what law schools are teaching or what they're having webinars about, right? That's sort of a simple way to see what's hot topics. So for any law school, see who they're hosting as guest speakers, what they're talking about, and those are the things that there's space to grow into.
Right. And along those lines, just to give you an overview of the conference, the international conference that we have coming up, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. We have Ian McDougall, who is the general counsel for LexisNexis, who is going to be talking about artificial intelligence for lawyers and how we can use it personally. And then a couple of us will be talking about artificial intelligence and what's happening for animals. So initially you can think, oh, wow, we're talking to whales, we're talking to dolphins, and we're doing all this conservation work. But, we need to make sure we step back and ask the question, should we be doing this? Is this the right path? It sounds good at first blush, but maybe it's not the right direction to go. So I think, that's going to be one of our issues. I think farmed animals and agriculture is another area that is going to continue to be an issue. The United States agriculture industry is in the trying to export its concentrated animal feeding operations to other countries. You have countries like Brazil, where there's clear cutting to make way for animal agriculture that's legal and illegal. I'm going to be in Sao Paulo in June discussing some of these issues and talking about some of these issues. I think agriculture is going to continue to be a big issue. We're also going to be talking about animals in science, and this kind of overlaps with artificial intelligence as well. But you've got animals in research, and you have positive things that are happening for animals with AI, and then you have negative things that are happening. But staying on top of these issues and getting involved is certainly another avenue if you have a scientific bent or interest. So we'll be talking about that. Deborah and some of her colleagues are going to be doing a very interesting session at the conference. Why don't you tell everybody about it, Deborah?
We are doing a sort of a moot court kind of thing because we're going to present some thoughts and ideas to a judge at the UIA conference in New York, dealing with the use of court dogs and what that might bring to the courtroom on both sides of the aisle. And also we're going to present, relationship breakups and pets. Because that has in 7 states been, some legislation has been passed for the judges to decide best interests or well-being, depending on where you are. So we're going to present different points of view, and then we're hoping to get a judge to help make that decision and help the audience learn more about the use of court dogs, the use of dogs in courts for victims, and what that spells for the prosecutor and the defense attorney, and then people who are, relationship breakups, even though most of the laws specifically say that they are for divorcing married people, they have been applied to relationship breakups as well. So it should be a very interesting and timely program if anyone's in New York and wants to attend.
Great, thank you, Deborah. Yes.
Oh, I
Okay,
just want to jump in with something unrelated, but I've been thinking about it since we heard from Charlotte, who, if I remember correctly, Charlotte, you're in the UK, and you said, you don't really have in the UK the same network of organizations like ALDF in the UK, but you're interested in working in the animal sort of space. And I just wanted to empathize with you and validate that that is a challenge. And also to say both that, I'd like to think that, there's a lot of animal advocates in the UK, but I have not worked in the UK very much, but I have lived and worked in other parts of Europe. And I know that since Brexit, living in the UK is not the same as living in countries in the EU, but I have had a lot of animal advocate friends and colleagues tell me that they have had to pursue work opportunities for organizations that will let them work remotely because they live in one country and work in another, where they can find an animal related organization that's hiring. But since COVID, those opportunities have been more common, that you can do remote work. And I think there's a program called like Erasmus, or there's some like European funding opportunities for people to do exchanges and do collaborations in other countries. So I think one thing Yolanda and I talked about when we were sort of planning for this meeting is, having everybody just do a little bit of an audit into their own lives and just think like, am I geographically flexible? And for many of us, I think the answer will be no. But, depending on where you are in your life and your career, maybe the answer is, yes. And for you in the UK, it may or may not be possible for you to pursue opportunities in other countries. But I just wanted to flag that because I do think Europe, I know more people that move around Europe in different countries, more similar to how people in the US move between states. So between potential geographic flexibility and also pursuing remote opportunities, I just wanted to just give you that source of encouragement, but I know that it can be challenging to live in a country that doesn't have the same infrastructure of animal advocacy organizations that, for example, we have in the US. Thanks.
Julie, did you have a comment or a question?
Well, no, I was going to just raise something that I'm personally interested in, just reach out so that if anybody has any thoughts, they could get in touch with me individually. But I was particularly, I enjoyed the presentation at the Animal Law Conference last fall that Pamela Frosch did about animals at the United Nations and Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm interested in getting involved in that area. And I know there's a lot of need, or at least I got the impression that there was a lot that was happening now. So that's an area that I'd like to get involved with. So if anyone knows somebody I could contact about offering my interest and my services to help with some of the documents that are being drafted or whatever, I'm interested in moving in that direction.
I can answer that, Julie. I'm one of the United Nations representatives at the for the UIA, and I am following sustainable development goals, but also, and I just recently had a meeting with some Kenyan colleagues. There's a resolution. There are two areas that we're following right now. There was a resolution that was drafted in 2022 where the United Nations for the first time recognized a nexus between human welfare and animal welfare and the environment. And we were talking about how we can advance that. And we're thinking maybe at the conference will be an opportunity to meet with some of our colleagues from Congo and some of the sub-Saharan African states to try to move that forward. So that's one area. The other area, and it's the topic of one of our sessions at the conference, is illegal wildlife trafficking, which has taken on epic proportions and has become a transnational organized crime, just like human trafficking, just like drug smuggling, just like arms smuggling. And traffickers are now using the same routes that they're using to traffic people, to traffic illegal wildlife, lots of reptiles, birds. I mean, it's a problem. And there's been an effort to add a fourth protocol to the United Nations. It's UNTOC, transnational, UN Transnational Organized Crime Convention. And the ABA has passed a resolution urging the United States to support a fourth protocol. So that's another issue, an area that we're working on. So if you want to reach out to me, the United Nations is a huge organization and it's difficult to keep up with everything for sure.
Yep.
So in the last few minutes we have, does anyone have any specific questions you want to ask? You know, it's us, the animal law, animal protection community is a small one, so we're always available. Does anyone have questions or anything specific they'd like to ask? Okay. So, Iselin, do you have any closing comments you would like to make before we sign off?
I've just been inspired by being in the room with people right now from all over the world, you know, from Washington, D.C., where I am, to India, and people that are doing work in Nepal. And I just, I think so much of what, you know, where I've gotten in my career has been by just meeting like-minded people and being inspired to look for opportunities to collaborate with them. And so I hope that maybe there's people in this very room that we can start building those maybe unlikely collaborations with. You know, a lot of us didn't know each other before an hour ago. So I don't know if, Yolanda, there's a way maybe for those of us that are registered for today to share each other's LinkedIn or somehow find out who each other is. I mean, I know that we all see each other's names here in the Zoom room, but I don't know if there's a way we can facilitate people maintaining connections. There's just an exciting sort of group of, you know, people here with lots of different synergies. So I would love to be able to harness that if we can.
Well, I think LinkedIn is one good possibility. I'm finding that there's a lot of good information, and there's a great deal of posting on current events and things that are happening, that it's so impossible to keep up with what's happening in every corner of the world related to animals. And I found that that's a good resource. So if anyone's not connected with me, please reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. And I also think if you're interested in international animal law, look at the UIA. We're doing a lot of interesting work. It's a way that you can connect. If you're not in the United States, it's a way that you can connect with lawyers largely in Europe. We have a lot of European lawyers who are members. And to be honest, the animal law group has been embraced by the UIA, more so than I've ever found at the ABA or the United States. There seems to be a much more open attitude about it. And so we have our first freestanding conference as a commission, which is quite exceptional. So I think there's some interesting things going on there, and certainly some opportunities to network. Our Congress will be in Paris the end of October. If you go to the website, you can look at all of the different events that are coming up, but the conference is in Paris is a good way to meet a lot of different people. The Animal Law Commission will be holding a couple of sessions. We'll also be speaking. So if you're in Europe, or even if you're not in Europe, you might want to consider attending the Paris Congress, which is the end of October. But I will emphasize, as Iselin was talking about, this whole idea of networking, social media isn't going to cut it. You're going to have to reach out and meet people beyond just the realm of, Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, people want to see you, they want to talk to you, and everyone is on the same page when it comes to animal protection, which is fantastic. You don't have a lot of disagreements in that sense. We're all moving towards the same goal, which is protecting all of the animals on the planet, and the planet is a consequence of that too. Okay, well, it's 2 minutes left, so we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you for joining us. I hope that those of you who are students benefited and learned something from those of us who have been around a while. And, we're still available once we sign off, so feel free to reach out to us at any time. And I hope to see you in July. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.